Apple's iPhone design chief headed to Love From to work with Jony Ive on AI devices. Now, what makes that so interesting? Jony Ive is one of the greatest designers of all time. He helped to innovate some of the biggest products within Apple itself, and he left a few years ago. And over the past couple of months, he teamed up with Sam Altman, and they're working on a secret AI device. And now one of Apple's biggest design chiefs has also left in order to go work with Jony Ive on the same secretive AI device that could be the iPhone killer or the smartphone killer. The interesting thing is that we actually call this a phone. And in reality, think about it for a second. How many times do you pick this up and make a phone call? Most often you're texting people on it. Most often you're going on social media, you're scrolling, you're looking at videos, checking out Netflix, you're looking on YouTube. You're doing everything but making phone calls. So in essence, this is not really a phone anymore. This is a smart device that can make phone calls. Let's talk more about this. Gotta drink my coffee. Coffee powers the day. Now, yesterday I uploaded a video where I spoke about the release of the GPT Store and how it was imminent and probably was gonna happen within that day itself. And what happened? It got released. It was released yesterday and everybody's talking about it. But this is part of a multi-pronged strategy that OpenAI has, especially Sam Altman, because he's been making investments left and right when it comes to different types of companies. One, they're creating their own types of chips in order to power their AI processing, because we know there's been a chip shortage for so long, with every big company trying to get their hands on whatever chips they possibly can. And then on top of that, Sam Altman's been making investments in different types of companies and platforms in order to try to, let me let this guy go. Go ahead. As we pass an accident over here. Now, if you notice, whenever I'm driving and making these videos, I rarely ever look at the mounted cameras. And that's because keeping my eyes on the road, making sure I see what's happening around me. I always check my mirrors. Every now and then I'll take a glance, but I'm always aware of what's taking place around me. Like these fire trucks are coming, they're not coming fast, so I will make sure to get out of their way from my merging lane. All right, let me get out of their way. Roads are clear. All right, so Sam Altman's been making these investments in different types of platforms, different companies, different startups. But one of the biggest ones is the investment and the team up with Jony Ive from Love From. Now, Jony Ive is one of the greatest designers of all time in terms of technology designers. And we see that, a team up like this means something is coming down the road. There's gonna be a greater integration between software and hardware in portable devices, because that's what Jony Ive specializes in. And Tang Tan, he was the chief designer for the iPhone and the Apple Watch, and he was, pivotal to the Apple team. So the two of them combined working on a secretive AI project, that means something significant coming down the road. And with the release of the GPT Store yesterday, you see what's happening. You see that there's going to be not only the apps that exist on our phones in terms of the ChatGPT app, but there'll be another type of device that's specifically dedicated to using ChatGPT and OpenAI. Now, what type of device will that be? Will it be a smartphone? I think there might be a smartphone, and the reason why I say that is because we're kind of in this interesting transitionary period. There's a lot of different types of devices that exist, right? Smartphones are the central component to a lot of them. We have wearables, we have, products like the Whoop band, we have products like the Aura Ring, we have all these different types of earbuds or AirPods or things of that nature that we can communicate with. But the central component still is the smartphone. And the reason for that is the data connection, right? So you need to have some type of connection to the internet or to the World Wide Web to be able to communicate with servers in data centers around the world. And right now, the primary technology we have is the smartphone. Now, granted, you do have, the Apple Watch that does have cellular capability as well. So you technically don't need a phone, but it still is not mainstream. So I think we're in this interesting point where there's going to be a transition between going from a fully functional smartphone to a dedicated AI device. And again, a lot of these phones that we have in our pockets, we rarely use it for what it's intended or what the name implies it's going to be used for. We use it to make phone calls every now and then, but we often ignore the phone calls that we get, right? I mean, how often do you click on ignore? We typically use our phones for other things, for gaming, for watching TV, for connecting on social media. So it's really a computer in your hand, a very, very small computer in your hand. What type of device will they be working on? Nobody really knows, right? They haven't really made any announcements other than the fact that we know that Sam Altman has teamed up with Jony Ive, and we know what Jony Ive's specialties are. But we see the GPT Store has been released, and we know that there's going to be a million different types of GPTs being created within the next day or so. They already have well over 3 million GPTs that were created as per their announcement. They're going to create a revenue sharing model within the first quarter, so that way, the most useful GPTs will get some type of financial reward or financial incentive. They'll be doing some profit sharing. It's not going to be the typical 70-30 split that you see in some platforms. It probably will be some type of creator fund where they designate a certain amount of money that they set aside for creators. And we've seen this before with other platforms. These funds that were created in terms of, with YouTube Shorts in the beginning, they had a creator fund created. TikTok had a creator fund. I believe Instagram had something. I know Snapchat had a creator fund. So you see this idea of creating a dedicated pool of money for specific creators within different platforms. So that's what I see is most likely going to happen. That's what I believe is most likely going to happen. But you're going to have all these GPTs created. You're going to have all this buy-in into the platform. People investing their time in order to make sure they can, get found on ChatGPT. And it's going to be a combination. You're going to have the no-coders, the people who don't know how to program. They can create GPTs. And you're going to have the developers, the programmers, and you're going to have the big companies creating GPTs that integrate with their platforms via an API key of some sort. And I said it yesterday in my video where I spoke about the release of the GPT Store and the launching of the GPT Store, that this is going to be a great way for lead generation, for creating a funnel network in terms of your sales funnel. It's going to be another way to get eyeballs on your system, on your platform. And it's similar to how iOS with the iOS App Store worked in terms of people being able to create something, release it for free, and then have a way for people to sign up for premium versions of it. Same thing with WordPress themes and plugins. You have thousands of themes and plugins on WordPress.org, and people use the free versions, but every now and then you're going to get people that pay for the premium service. And the same thing with Google Play Store and other platforms. So this is interesting. What's going to happen? We know that Google is already mentioning the fact that they're going to put their Gemini AI into their Google phone, right? So that's going to happen. We know that Apple is already working big time in terms of AI. They released their Ferret model, their large language model. It's open source, which is very interesting for Apple to do. But they also, I'm confident and sure, they're going to be integrating further advancements in their AI into the smartphone, into the iPhone. Who knows, iPhone 16 might have a custom chip dedicated towards AI. I can see that happening. Matter of fact, I think that that's a pretty safe bet to take in terms of, will Apple include an AI-specific chip in the iPhone 16? In order to stay competitive, they're probably going to have to. It's going to be interesting times. I think that developers and programmers and non-coders are going to have fun creating these GPTs, and that they're going to be able to, if they do it successfully, earn a couple of dollars. Some will make a lot. Not many. The majority of people will not make significant incomes, but some will. If you're able to create something that's extremely useful, then there is the opportunity, to make some decent money. And I mentioned the example yesterday of Flappy Birds in terms of they were able to make $50,000 per day. $50,000 per day. Think about that number for a moment. You're able to make $1.5 million per month. That's what he was able to do with his app on iOS. Is that going to be possible with the GPT Store? Who knows? There's a lot of details that haven't been disclosed yet in terms of how the profit sharing is going to go. We do know there's going to be some type of revenue sharing released within the first quarter, but there's going to be a lot of growth opportunity because that's going to be stage one. We know that by working with Jony Ive and working with Tang Tan, integrating ChatGPT or GPT-4 Turbo or GPT-5, when that gets released into an AI-specific device, that's going to open up even more doors, more opportunities for people to find different types of companies and platforms and different types of GPTs. And like I mentioned yesterday, the savvy developer is going to make sure that they create something that could be cross-platform compatible. Because we know that other GPTs are going to be coming on the market in terms of providers besides ChatGPT, besides OpenAI. We know there's already a bunch of other platforms out there, but we know that the market's going to get flooded even further. So with that, it makes sense to create a website or have a website, have a service you're providing, create an API key, offer a free GPT, obviously on ChatGPT, and then have some way to integrate it with your platform. How that's going to work, there's still a lot to take a look at, and how that's going to be tightly integrated and what's going to be allowed. And I think that people are going to be moving fast and breaking things, which is typically what happens within this industry. And then people are going to be moving slow, running the risk of getting left behind or being late to the game, but trying to make sure they get it right. And there's pros and cons to both strategies. You can move fast without concern for what the long-term impact is going to be. You can get a significant amount of user growth early on, but you might run the risk that your system, GPT or whatever, will end up being deleted for whatever reason that might pop up. That's a risk that you might take. My recommendation is move fast enough, but do it right. You don't want to try to get out the gate so fast that you end up messing up your long-term goals. It's always a delicate balance, but I think that a new AI device is definitely on the horizon. I mean, if you take a look at the market, I mentioned a couple of things already, like we have the Apple Watch, we have a bunch of other watches, some from Samsung, Fitbits, we have the Whoop band, we have the Oura Ring. But then we have some other types of devices. We have Neuralink, which is a computer chip being integrated into the human brain. And that's by none other than Elon Musk, right? It's his way to make sure that humans can be competitive with AI long term, upgrading the brain. Now that's an interesting one. That's sometimes these devices, whether it's your phone or whatever device you're using, they can glitch out, there could be issues, they could get hacked. And if your brain gets hacked, I mean, some people say our brains are already getting hacked, but in terms of all the misinformation out there, I try to tell people, look at your sources, make sure your sources are good, make sure that your sources are reputable, and then try to get multiple sources and make a decision based on that. Really do your homework. But having a permanent device implanted into your brain is a very interesting idea. I do not want to be the first person doing that. I don't want to be the second person doing that. There's some early adopters, biohackers, that will do something like that, but there's other options. There's the brain interfaces that are coming onto the scene. We have another person, I forget what his name is, but he developed a brain interface similar to Neuralink, but doesn't need surgery. So that one is going to be a little bit, more viable for people who don't want the permanent solution. What happens when you want to upgrade your Neuralink, right? But then we have other devices as well. We have the pen that came out from another one of, I believe it was Apple's former design people. I can't recall, so I don't want to say that it definitely was from a former Apple employee. But we have a pen, an AI pen, that interacts with your world in terms of what it sees, right? And then there's a lot of features behind it. I want to do more research on it, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. But, it's a device that you wear on your person. Then we have the smart glasses. We have Meta just announced, their updated smart glasses. We have the Apple Vision Pro, which is, slated to be released. and that's for augmented reality. We have the Quest glasses. So that's another advancement. But we see all these devices coming onto the scene, and AI is going to be integrated everywhere. So whatever Jony Ive and whatever Tang Tan and Sam Altman are cooking up in their laboratories and their research and development facilities, I wish I could be a fly on that wall. But whatever they're cooking up is definitely going to be a game changer, because it's going to be integrating the largest or the best LLM that we have to date that's commercially available with hardware. The marriage of software and hardware is pivotal. It was instrumental to Apple's success, because when you get to marry the software and the hardware together and you have full control over the entire operating system and the way the device functions, low-level capabilities. When I mean low-level meaning so close to the hardware that it's really able to take full advantage of whatever that device is, or the capabilities of that device, of the hardware, instead of having multiple layers of abstraction in terms of, languages and platforms and frameworks and libraries that end up slowing down the processing time. So when you have a device that has the software that's fully able to take full advantage of what's taking place within that device, of all the resources, that's when amazing things happen. And I think that we're going to see a game-changing device. I still think it might end up being some type of smartphone, only because we're still in a transitionary period of time where people are still using smartphones. It's still one of the devices that's central to a person's daily life. I mean, if you think about it, yeah, you might have a tablet, but you're not carrying it with you at all times, and it's not as easily accessible. You might have your laptop, and it's mobile, but again, it's not as easily accessible. You might have a smartwatch, but do you have the cellular data connection, and how's that user interface? And I think that's what's going to be primary here. And that's why this team is coming together for this secretive AI device, because the interface between humans and devices and the way you can input and get output of your commands, your data, or your prompts, or your thoughts, or whatever, that is important. However you can make it that is seamless. If you can find a way to make it seamless, then you're cracking the code. Then you are developing something that has that secret sauce, that secret capability, that magical capability of fully integrating humans with technology. And that's what we've been doing for years, right? We're kind of like cyborgs now in terms of the way we operate. We have our second and third brains. We have our phones that are computers. Our second brains typically was considered some type of note-taking app where you can strategize and things of that nature. But now I think we have second and third brains. And, it's interesting because third brain or second brain, however you want to put it in terms of the level, is your AI assistant. Now it's your peer collaborator, right? It's your collaborator, it's your peer programmer. It's someone that you ideate with or something that you ideate with. But yeah, so we have our second and third brains. Got to drink coffee because this helps my brain. It's going to be interesting whatever they develop. And I think that team up, that dream team, is going to create something magical. And for us, we've been, like I was saying, we're kind of like cyborgs in the sense that we already work a lot with mobile technology. We kind of feel naked if we don't have our phones with us, right? If we don't have our devices with us. We feel like we're missing something. They've become a part of us. So the fact that they're working together, the fact that they're working on a device that's going to be powered by probably GPT-5 at this point, because by the time they actually design it, get the patents, I'm going to be looking at the patents that they come out with. They'll definitely have GPT-5 at that point, since they're already testing for that. And we'll be closer to a situation where we'll have the next generation magical device that is pivotal to our daily lives. So these are exciting times. These are very interesting times. They're times that people are really having access to information in ways that they never did before. And if you think about it, with the invention of the printing press. That was a point in time where technology really helped democratize knowledge. With the invention of the internet, when it was created at CERN by Tim Berners-Lee. I did a video on that also, where I spoke about Tim Berners-Lee, his contribution to creating the internet. That also democratized the sharing of knowledge and sharing of information. Before that, think about it, you would have to send a piece of mail overseas, right? Or you would have to have a file sharing server, and it was a little bit cumbersome for the non-techies. Actually, the non-techies never had access to that stuff because it wasn't easy. But now, with all this technology, we can share information at virtually the speed of light. So what that means is that we're coming upon another point in time in technology where information is being shared faster, and the fact that people don't necessarily have to search for information, they can now prompt for information. And with a new device that's going to be developed, a secretive device, that's game changing. That's going to be a point in time where everybody's knowledge will increase significantly, substantially. So everybody's talking about AI is going to take my job. I still think we have a long time before AI fully replaces humans. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. So I think the people who do not adopt AI in terms of their workflow and learn how to use these platforms will have a very difficult time. I think companies that don't find a way to integrate AI into their processes, into their workflows, they're going to have a tough time. But companies and people that find a way to work effectively with these things, they're going to do very well. What I think is going to happen is that you're going to see a changing of the guard. Right now, OpenAI is valued at, I forget what the number is, over 100 billion at this point. They're going to be $1 trillion company. We know that because of AI, NVIDIA became $1 trillion company. But OpenAI is going to be $1 trillion company as well. Microsoft is faring very well because of their marriage with OpenAI and investing so much money into the platform. Google, obviously, they have deep brain and they have deep mind, and they have a lot of very smart AI developers working on what comes next. But you got to remember, and this is one thing I probably should do a separate video on. Reason why OpenAI is able to push things out so much faster in terms of their large language model commercialization of it is because they're relatively new in terms of a company, right? It's actually co-founded by Elon Musk back in the day before him and Sam Altman had a falling out. But they're relatively new, and this is their primary business. So all of their resources are going towards doing this type of work. Versus Google, a lot of their work in AI is how to improve their current product line. So a lot of their resources, their GPUs, their data centers, their hardware, their developers, they're spending time and resources and money and capital in terms of integrating AI with their services. That also means that they cannot dedicate those resources to advancing the AI itself. Now, granted, I'm pretty confident the AI they have in-house is game-changing, next level. They do not want to release it anytime soon for fears of whatever. But it's not their primary focus. And Apple, they're a software and a hardware company, right? They have their software that they sell. They have their apps that they sell. They have the hardware that they sell. And AI is not their primary focus. AI is the primary focus of OpenAI. So AI is not necessarily coming for people's jobs, but they're coming for companies. They're targeting companies. And it's a race to the top. So these are interesting times. They're fun times. They're exciting times. And I'm going to have fun taking a look at these GPTs and seeing what I can release. And I think you should too. Whether you're a coder, a programmer, developer, software engineer, or if you have no desire to use code, create something. See what's already been created and see how you can create something for yourself, something that's customized, and then see if there's a way for you to release it to the world. With that, I'm home. I'm going to finish my coffee, edit these videos. I'm going to code and do a little bit more research. You know what you got to do? Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Happy coding.